So the story begins with May, a young girl, who grew up in an orphanage and is very curious. Well, May boldly goes straight to the head of the orphanage to find out more. From a young age in the orphanage, now an adult, May really wants to find out who her biological parents are. With her boyfriend, Roy, May ventures to the coastal settlement to find clues. There, they try to ask the locals for information. Finally, they meet Mrs. Meyer, who claims to be May's birth mother who left her at the orphanage. Mrs. Meyer is very regretful, explaining the reasons why she did it. At that time, she was facing extreme difficulties, even struggling to buy basic necessities. While Mrs. Meyer was telling her story, suddenly Melissa, May's sister, comes in, making the situation more complicated. It turns out, Melissa is a spy and has a relationship with a police officer named Paul. Now, that night, Melissa starts her action by pretending to make a transaction. But actually, she has set up a trap to catch the drug dealers and distributors. Paul's team arrives and successfully raids them. In essence, May and Roy go home, but May's adoptive parents disagree with her seeking her origins. This action is prevented by the fact that May's adoptive father, Tony, disagrees with May continuing her search. Tony, the adoptive father, is very harsh, often resorting to physical violence against May. Fortunately, May's adoptive mother is always there for her, protecting her from the brutality of her easily angered father. Although Tony is often harsh towards his family, May's adoptive mother tries to maintain harmony. However, the situation often makes May's adoptive mother treated unfairly by her husband. May is sad and anxious, while her adoptive mother remains strong and patient in facing all of this. May's adoptive mother remains hopeful and continues to pray that her husband can become a better person despite being stubborn. As it turns out, without many people knowing, May's adoptive father secretly plays billiards with May. In the morning, the police station is bustling, with journalists coming in, because Melissa and Paul successfully uncovered yesterday's transaction. It's causing quite a stir. An extraordinary achievement for the Philippine police. But the police chief is upset, not happy at all. He's angry with Paul, feeling that Paul went too far in the raid, especially since there was almost a victim. Paul is removed from the investigation. It turns out the police chief received a bribe from May's adoptive father, who was actually a big-time dealer. At home, May and her adoptive mother support each other, but their faces are filled with pain. They feel helpless against Tony soon. Tony comes home and immediately challenges May to a ruthless game of billiards. May has no other choice but to surrender and try to endure Tony's attacks. The situation breaks May's adoptive mother's heart. She feels extremely limited in protecting May and can't confront her husband. Now, seeing her husband playing billiards with May, May's adoptive mother's heartbreak deepens. She is fearful and worried seeing her husband, who often gets angry. Although May's adoptive mother really wants to protect May from harm, the situation is extremely difficult for both of them. One day, May and her adoptive mother finally visit May's biological parents' house. There, they meet May's birth mother and sibling. Both families are taken shopping, buy lots of clothes, and then invited to May's super luxurious mansion. They are impressed, but unexpectedly, May's adoptive father is also there. His attitude is unfriendly without any clear reason, immediately belittling May's birth family. Fortunately, both Melissa and May's birth mother are not provocative and remain self-aware. At this point, it is revealed that May's birth mother never knew who actually planted the seed. That resulted in May Many people were involved in his black grass. Upon returning from May's house, Melissa immediately goes to the police station to report that May's adoptive father is the kingpin they are looking for. The success of this report makes them relieved because finally, justice will be served. In the next few days, Melissa and Paul start to investigate further. Paul pursues May's adoptive father while Melissa focuses on May. Together, they try to uncover deeper facts. Meanwhile, May is playing billiards with Roy, but they have to stop when Melissa comes to the house. May is very happy to welcome her sister, but Melissa immediately asks about May's adoptive family. May doesn't want to answer openly, wanting to quickly return to playing billiards with Roy. But the house is empty and Melissa's curiosity grows stronger. She daringly sneaks into May's adoptive father's room. But what she finds in the room shocks her without hesitation. She takes photos for evidence and immediately reports to the police. That night, Melissa and Paul plan the next steps. Paul manages to gather some Filipino police officers who are still free from corruption. Together, they devise a plan to crack down on the illegal trade, realizing how dangerous it is for the young generation in the Philippines. The next day, Paul assigns Melissa to find more evidence at May's house, carefully. Melissa enters without being noticed by anyone. But suddenly she hears May's voice, apparently playing billiards with her adoptive father. Melissa witnesses Tony treating May harshly. This infuriates Melissa to see her sister being mistreated. The next day, unable to bear it, she immediately tells her mother to take action to save May. May also confirms that Melissa's story is true. For years, May couldn't resist her adoptive father's abuse. She felt resigned and forced to comply with whatever her adoptive father wanted. Melissa's mother is furious and cannot accept this. After all, May is still her biological daughter. With the evidence they found last night, they plan to raid May's adoptive father. Suddenly, Tony's guards appear and threaten them. Fortunately, Paul acts quickly, hits the guard, ties him up, rendering him unable to do anything. That night, May is invited to join Paul and his team. Now May helps Paul capture her adoptive father. The next day, May and her father go somewhere. Meanwhile, Paul and his team are ready. On a quiet street, the police quickly remove May's father's guards. May's father is arrested and taken to their headquarters. May's father is unaware that May is involved, but May actually has a personal plan to take revenge on her father, who has been abusive to her all this time. Suddenly, Paul takes an unexpected action, sending May's father to another world. It is revealed that Paul and some other police officers did all this for money. They don't care about the fate of the country. For them, it's all about money. May, Sandra, and Melissa are asked to contact May's adoptive mother for a huge ransom. Now, the destruction begins, purely dark motives, and Melissa heartlessly involves her own sister just for money. May's house becomes chaotic. The police and her mother are worried. Roy, May's boyfriend, is also panicking. When calling her mother for the ransom, the panic intensifies. Her mother agrees to pay without much thought. Her mother asks Roy to bring the requested money. Roy brings the money and Paul's henchmen take the suitcase. But suddenly, the police raid them. Paul's henchmen report that they have been caught. Paul himself panics, even wanting to get rid of May and Melissa. But May's birth mother arrives, successfully dealing with Paul first. Finally, May, Melissa, and her birth mother can live happily. Meanwhile, May's adoptive mother can only cry seeing the situation. Her husband has passed away. All of this shows how justice is finally served, and May's family can live free from threats. The movie is finished.